For nearly a millennium, one city has stood at the heart of Russian power, ambition, and destiny. From humble beginnings as a wooden fortress, it rose to become the capital of empires and revolutions. It has been burned to ashes and reborn, witnessed the fall of Tsars and the rise of communism. Today, it stands as a global metropolis, blending centuries of history with cutting-edge innovation. This is Moscow, a city that has shaped not just Russia, but the entire world. In the next 10 minutes, we'll explore the epic saga of this remarkable city through 10 defining chapters that changed the course of history. From Ivan the Terrible to Vladimir Putin, from Napoleon's invasion to the space race, this is the story of Moscow and the story of Russia itself. Buckle up for a journey through time, power, and the indomitable spirit of one of the world's great cities. The birth of Moscow, 1147, 1300s. In 1147, amidst Russia's dense forests, Prince Yuri Dolgorukiy founded a small settlement on the Moskva River, Moscow. Its strategic location at trade route intersections and the river's natural defense helped it grow. By the 12th century, it was a thriving town with merchants and artisans. Early Muscovites built wooden homes and churches, laying the groundwork for later stone structures. By the 13th century, Moscow was a regional center, its defenses strengthened by a wooden Kremlin. Daniel of Moscow, son of Alexander Nevsky, inherited the town in 1263. A shrewd ruler, he expanded Moscow's influence through diplomacy and alliances, absorbing smaller principalities. He founded the Danilov monastery, enhancing Moscow's spiritual prestige. By the end of the 13th century, Moscow had become a rising power in northeastern Russia, ready for its meteoric rise. If this video inspires you, hit like, share, and subscribe. Then add a comment on which city you want us to explore next for more adventures around the world. The Mongol Invasion and Moscow's Survival, 1237, 1480. The Mongol Invasion, in 1237 led by Batu Khan, devastated the Russian principalities. In 1238, Moscow was burned, seemingly ending its rise. However, Moscow's rulers adopted a strategy of cooperation rather than resistance. Ivan Thrustner, Moneybags, cultivated relations with the Mongol Khans, earning their trust and the title of Grand Prince of Vladimir in 1328. This spared Moscow from raids, allowing it to grow and attract people from other regions. Ivan used his tax collector position to enrich Moscow, expanding its territory. The Mongol yoke paradoxically helped Moscow rise, filling the political vacuum created by the shattered power structures of Kievan Rus. In 1325, Metropolitan Peter moved his residence to Moscow, making it the spiritual capital. By the mid-14th century, Moscow challenged Mongol authority. In 1378, Prince Dmitry Donskoy defeated a Mongol force at the Vozha River. The defining moment came in 1380 with the Battle of Kulikovo, where Dmitry defeated a Mongol army, earning the epithet Donskoy. Though Tokhtamysh sacked Moscow in 1382, it couldn't halt Moscow's rise. Under Ivan III, Moscow finally threw off the Mongol yoke in 1480, refusing to pay tribute. The Mongols withdrew, ending over 2 centuries of dominance. The rise of the Tsars, 1500s to 1600s. In 1547, Ivan IV declared himself the first Tsar of all Rus, making Moscow the capital of a unified state. He replaced the Kremlin's wooden walls with stone and ordered the construction of St. Basil's Cathedral to commemorate his conquest of Kazan. Ivan expanded Russian territory, conquering Kazan and Astrakhan, and initiating the conquest of Siberia. However, his reign was marked by terror. In 1565, he instituted the Oprichnina, a period of terror that had a profound impact on Moscow. Many noble families were wiped out. Despite the terror, Moscow continued to grow, attracting merchants and diplomats. The first printing press in Russia was established in Moscow in 1553. The latter years of Ivan's reign were marked by tragedy. He killed his son in 1581. The time of troubles followed his death in 1584. Pretenders to the throne and foreign powers vied for control. In 1610, a Polish army occupied Moscow until a popular uprising expelled them in 1612. Moscow versus St. Petersburg, a tale of two capitals, 1703–1918. In 1703, Tsar Peter the Great built St. Petersburg. Petersburg, shifting power away from Moscow. St. Petersburg became Russia's window to Europe, representing modernization. Moscow remained the historical and spiritual heart of Russia. The contrast between the two cities was stark. St. Petersburg represented the westernizing face of Russia, while Moscow embodied its traditional Slavic soul. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia. Moscow's citizens evacuated, and the city was set on fire to deny resources to the French. Napoleon's troops were forced to retreat, and Moscow was rebuilt on a grand scale. Moscow became a center of Old Believer communities and education, with the founding of Moscow University in 1755. As the 19th century progressed, Moscow became a major industrial center. The cultural rivalry between Moscow and St. Petersburg intensified. The Russian Revolution of 1905 shook Tsarist rule. The Russian Revolution and Moscow's comeback, 1917–1924. The Russian Revolution of 1917 brought Moscow back to prominence. The February Revolution led to the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II. Various factions vied for power. The Bolsheviks seized power in October 1917, sparking fighting in Moscow. Lenin moved the capital back to Moscow in March 1918, making the Kremlin the headquarters of the world's first socialist state. The Bolsheviks implemented radical changes, abolishing private property and seizing mansions. They embarked on public works and urban planning. Moscow University was reorganized, and avant-garde art flourished. Life in Bolshevik Moscow was difficult due to economic hardship. Lenin introduced the New Economic Policy, NEP, in 1921, allowing limited private enterprise. Stalin's Moscow, megaprojects and repression, 1920s, 1953. Under Stalin, Moscow underwent a transformation, becoming a showcase of socialist achievement. The Moscow Metro was built, featuring stations adorned with marble and mosaics. The general plan for the reconstruction of Moscow called for monumental buildings. The Seven Sisters skyscrapers dramatically altered Moscow's skyline. The physical transformation came at a human cost. The population swelled, leading to housing shortages. Forced labor was used on construction sites. The 1930s saw the Great Terror, with widespread arrests and executions. World War II and the Battle of Moscow, 1941 to 1945. The German invasion in 1941 threatened Moscow. Stalin remained in Moscow, ordering a military parade on Red Square on November 7, 1941. General Georgy Zhukov organized the city's defenses. The civilian population was mobilized. Moscow was transformed into a fortress. Operation Typhoon began on October 2, 1941. The Germans reached the outskirts of Moscow, but the Soviet forces launched a counteroffensive on December 5, 1941, pushing the Wehrmacht back. The defense of Moscow marked a turning point in World War II. The war years were a time of hardship for Moscow's residents. Yet the city's residents displayed resilience. Moscow became a center of wartime diplomacy. The end of the war in 1945 brought celebrations. Moscow hosted the Victory Parade on June 24, 1945. The successful defense had a profound impact on Moscow, confirming its status. The fall of the Soviet Union and Moscow's chaos, 1991 to 2000. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 brought upheaval to Moscow. Gorbachev's policies unleashed forces the Communist Party couldn't control. The failed coup attempt in August 1991 accelerated the collapse. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. Moscow plunged into chaos. The transition to a market economy led to hyperinflation and privatization. Poverty and inequality rose, along with crime and corruption. Western consumer culture flooded into the city. Political life was turbulent. The constitutional crisis of October 1993 saw tanks shelling the White House. Despite the chaos, Moscow's cultural life flourished. The financial crisis of 1998 led to the devaluation of the ruble. By the decade's end, Moscow was transformed, standing at a crossroads. On December 31, 1999, Boris Yeltsin resigned, with Vladimir Putin becoming acting president. Moscow today, Putin's Russia and the future, 2000 present. Putin's leadership brought stability to Moscow. The city experienced a construction boom with the rise of Moscow City. Historic buildings were restored. Moscow cemented its position as Russia's powerhouse. However, prosperity was unevenly distributed. Transportation remained a challenge, with traffic congestion. Political power became more centralized. Moscow became the stage for anti-government protests. The city's museums and theaters enjoyed a revival. The 2018 FIFA World Cup showcased Moscow on the global stage. Relations with the West deteriorated, impacting the economy. The COVID-19 pandemic presented new challenges. As Moscow moves into the 21st century, it faces challenges. Technological innovation and environmental sustainability are crucial. Moscow continues to evolve, blending legacy and ambition. The future will be shaped by global forces and local realities. The story of Moscow, a city of profound importance, is far from over. Got your own favorite Moscow moments or an idea for which city to explore next? Share them in the comments. And if this video inspires you, hit like, share, and subscribe for more adventures around the world. See you next time.